Good morning. Today we are going to see chapter 6 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, which contains section 73, 74 and 75. Okay, three sections are there. The heading of the chapter is what? Consequences of breach of contract. What are the consequences of breach of contract? That is mentioned in these three sections, and these three sections are telling you about compensation. Okay, in the previous video what I have told you, quantum merit, you get quantum merit remedy not under contract law, that we get under equity, and injunction, rescission, specific performance of contract you get under specific relief act. Okay, so under contract law the remedy which has been provided for breach of contract is mentioned in chapter 6. Okay, now what section 73 is telling: when a contract has been broken, the party who suffers by such breach is entitled to receive from the party who has broken the contract compensation for any loss or damage caused to him thereby, which naturally arose in the usual course of things from such breach, or which the parties knew when they made the contract to be likely to result from the breach of it. Okay, clearly it is mentioned that natural consequences, natural loss has occurred. Whatever loss has occurred by the breach of contract, you can get compensation for that. And the loss which was in your contemplation, you had the knowledge that by breach of contract this thing is going to happen, then you are liable to pay compensation for that also. It is clearly mentioned in section 73. Okay. Such compensation is not to be given for any remote and indirect loss or damage sustained by reason of the breach. Here also the principle injury non remota causa sed proxima spectator. Whatever is remote, for that you will not get, whatever is remote loss, remote damage, you will not get compensation. That principle is mentioned in the second paragraph which is there of section 73. Okay. The other thing which is mentioned in section 73 is what? When an obligation resembling those created by contract has been incurred and has not been discharged, any person injured by the failure to discharge it is entitled to receive the same compensation from the party in default as if such person had contracted to discharge it and had broken the contract. Means the relations, the obligations resembling those created by the contract, means they are just resembling, they are not arising from contract like quasi contract and all. In that case also, if loss occurs, then you are having a right for getting compensation. This is mentioned in section 73. Means right to compensation for breach of contract is mentioned in section 73. Okay. Now section 74 states that compensation for breach of contract where penalty stipulated for. Means in a contract, if penalty is stipulated or some amount is mentioned, then you are going to get the prescribed amount, the prescribed penalty. This is called as liquidated damages. Okay. Now in tort, what we have seen, tort is a civil wrong for which the general remedy is what? Compensation, damages. And which type of damages? Unliquidated. Means it is not already mentioned. Okay, but in a contract the parties come together, they negotiate, they have offer, acceptance and all. Therefore in a contract a term may be put that if somebody makes a breach, then this is the amount of compensation which he has to give to the other. Such a amount is stipulated or such a fine or penalty is mentioned for breach of contract, then section 74 is telling that this person is going to get that liquidated damages. Okay. Section 74, I'll read. When a contract has been broken, if a sum is named means an amount is mentioned in the contract as the amount to be paid in case of such breach, or if the contract contains any other stipulation by way of penalty, the party complaining of the breach is entitled, whether or not actual damage or loss is proved to have been caused thereby, to receive from the party who has broken the contract reasonable compensation not exceeding the amount so named, or as the case may be, the penalty stipulated for. Means whatever amount is mentioned in the contract, that amount the person can get as compensation, or a reasonable amount not exceeding that mentioned amount he can get as compensation. That is mentioned in section 74. This is called as a liquidated damages. The main difference between tort and breach of contract is what? This: both are civil wrong. Tort is also a civil wrong. Contract also, it is a civil case. It is a case where you have to file in a civil court only. Compensation is a basic remedy in both, in compensation also, in contract also, and also in tort. But the basic difference is what? In contract there can be, not there is always, there can be liquidated damages, mentioned damages, while in a tort there is always a unliquidated damages. Okay, that is section 74. Now section 75, party rightfully rescinding contract entitled to compensation. If a party rightfully rescinds, rightfully cancels the contract, then he is entitled for getting compensation. Okay, now the provisions are like: a person who rightfully rescinds a contract is entitled to compensation for any damage which he has sustained through the non-fulfillment of the contract. Okay, we'll see one illustration. A singer contracts with B, the manager of a theatre, to sing at his theatre for 2 nights in every week during the next 2 months. Okay, means for next 2 months he is going to sing in his theatre every 2 nights. 2 nights in a week. For next 2 months he is going to sing. And B engages to pay her 100 rupees for each night's performance. On the 6th night, means 5 nights have been completed, the amount has been paid. Okay, on the 6th night, A willfully absents herself from the theatre and B in consequence rescinds the contract. B is entitled to claim compensation for the damage which he has sustained through the non-fulfillment of the contract. Means from the 6th night further, whatever loss he has occurred, the manager of the theatre, the owner of the theatre has occurred certain loss, he is having full right to cancel the contract, and he is having full right to get compensation also for the breach of contract, for the non-performance of the contract by the singer. Okay, now this is section 75. Means in Contract Act, these 3 sections are there in chapter 6 telling about compensation. Okay, means section 73 is there telling that every person is having a right, if breach of contract takes place, to get natural loss, whatever loss has occurred, natural loss has occurred, direct loss has occurred, he is having full right to get compensation. And also the contemplated damage, for that also he can get damages, compensation, but for remote he will not get. Okay, 73 is this. 74 states about if penalty is prescribed, if clear mention is there about liquidated compensation in a contract, then he will get compensation which is mentioned in the contract, or a reasonable compensation he can get, but not more than that. And section 75 states that if a person rightfully rescinds the contract, then whatever loss occurs for non-performance, he can get compensation. These are the 3 sections telling about the important remedy for breach of contract. Okay, now the further sections, that is section 76 to 123, they are mentioned in chapter 7. They deal with sale of goods. They used to deal with sale of goods, but these all sections are being repealed by the Indian Sale of Goods Act 1930. So we are going to skip chapter 7 and directly we will go to chapter 8, which tells about indemnity and guarantee, which are also called as special type of contract. But before that, we will probe into the topic of compensation in the next video by a case called as Hadley versus Baxendale. Okay, bye bye. See you in the next video.